I still remember the day when everything changed, the day Olivia Grant, after years of dedication and countless hours building complex systems, sat in the sleek glass office of the company she had helped grow, only to witness the CEO's son, Brandon Caldwell, openly laugh as he presented her hard work as his own to the board, and the humiliation cut deep, sharper than anything she had ever endured, because all the late nights, meticulous coding, presentations, and strategy sessions she had poured herself into were being dismissed, co-opted, and celebrated by someone who hadn't earned a fraction of it, and while the initial shock made her chest tighten and her hands shake slightly, Olivia's mind, trained to remain sharp under pressure, immediately went to analysis, cataloging every step, every email, every project milestone that proved her contribution, and she knew one thing with crystal clarity: retaliation had to be precise, undeniable, and irreversible, and before she could even confront him verbally, the unthinkable happened. He called her into the HR office under the guise of a performance discussion and, in a cruel twist, fired her on the spot, citing vague reasons, corporate policy, and her incompatibility with the new team, as if the theft, the mockery, and her measurable contributions didn't exist, and Olivia, ever composed, nodded politely, gathered her belongings calmly, and walked out of the office without saying a word, letting the humiliation settle over them while her mind worked at full throttle, because she knew that true revenge wasn't about shouting or immediate confrontation, it was about strategy, leverage, and timing, and over the next 24 hours, she meticulously ensured that all her personal backups, intellectual property records, and project documentation were securely stored off-site, fully time-stamped, and legally protected, knowing that she had built a safety net that could not be ignored, and then she reached out quietly to key partners, vendors, and collaborators, those who had seen her work firsthand and could verify her contributions, preparing them subtly for the eventual revelation that would leave Brandon and the company scrambling. And as she monitored internal communications and the movements of her former colleagues, she noticed small errors begin to compound. Tasks that only she had the institutional knowledge to resolve were left incomplete, clients confused, and deadlines slipping, and Olivia recognized the perfect opening for the final phase, the part of the plan that would be executed without emotion, without confrontation, but with undeniable authority and impact, because she had learned long ago that patience and meticulous preparation are more devastating than anger alone. And then, precisely 2 days after her termination, with every piece of evidence, every partner, and every contingency carefully aligned, Olivia activated her plan. All accounts she had administratively overseen, accounts critical to operations, project tracking, and client management, were frozen remotely with proper security protocols she had implemented, causing immediate disruption that forced the company to acknowledge, even begrudgingly, that the systems she had built and controlled were indispensable, and the chaos that ensued was swift and undeniable. Employees panicked, clients called for explanations, and Brandon Caldwell's attempts to regain control were met with errors, lockouts, and operational breakdowns that highlighted the depth of his oversight and arrogance, and the board, previously entertained by his display of supposed genius, began to see the consequences of ignoring expertise, experience, and the human element in leadership, and Olivia, watching from the sidelines, felt a quiet satisfaction, not from malice, but from the elegant execution of strategy, timing, and professional leverage, and as inquiries, client complaints, and internal investigations began to mount, she had already scheduled meetings, provided detailed documentation, and guided key stakeholders through the verification of her work, presenting timelines, contributions, and operational control that left no room for dispute, and the brilliance of the plan was in its subtlety. She had not publicly humiliated anyone with theatrics or anger, yet the result was clear and irreversible, because the company could not operate without the systems she had designed, maintained, and controlled, and every attempt to bypass or undermine her contributions only reinforced the truth, and as Brandon's confidence faltered, and the board began to realize that their haste, assumptions, and dismissal of a seasoned professional had backfired spectacularly, Olivia's reputation, even outside the company, surged, with partners, vendors, and industry peers recognizing the precision, intelligence, and strategic mastery of her actions, and she documented everything meticulously, ensuring that her ethical stance, legal compliance, and undeniable expertise were visible, irrefutable, and permanent, because Olivia Grant had learned that revenge, when executed with intelligence, preparation, and professionalism, leaves no room for doubt, resentment, or misunderstanding, and as she observed the scramble to restore operations, the public statements to clients, and the whispered admissions of error among leadership, she allowed herself a subtle, controlled smile, because the lesson had been delivered. Underestimate Olivia Grant at your own peril, assume that systems, expertise, and institutional knowledge are replaceable, and dismiss a professional who understands both the technical and human aspects of an organization. And the most satisfying part was that it had been achieved without malice, without outbursts, but with absolute precision, timing, and undeniable impact, because the power of preparation, documentation, and strategic execution is often invisible until it strikes, and the impact is unavoidable. And as Olivia finally took a breath, knowing the industry, the company, and Brandon Caldwell himself now fully comprehended the consequences of their arrogance, she realized the ultimate satisfaction of strategic revenge, not chaos, not anger, not spectacle, but the elegant, irreversible, and professional assertion of expertise, authority, and influence that left the arrogant scrambling, the unethical exposed, and her own position and reputation not only restored but elevated, because Olivia Grant had turned theft, mockery, and termination into a masterclass of strategy, timing, and undeniable professional power, leaving everyone involved to silently acknowledge, in their own way, that she was indispensable, irreplaceable, and far more capable than anyone had given her credit for, and the story would ripple throughout the company and industry as a quiet legend of calculated, professional revenge executed flawlessly, proving that preparation, timing, and understanding the true levers of control are far more powerful than anger, confrontation, or theatrics, and that even when dismissed and ridiculed, a professional with foresight, skill, and strategic vision can create outcomes that are irreversible, undeniable, and profoundly satisfying. And in the end, Olivia Grant walked away not with bitterness, but with the quiet triumph of a job executed perfectly, a lesson delivered with precision, and a reputation cemented beyond doubt.